New Pokemon from the Generation 9 games will be shown in this video, but no post-game Pokemon will be shown. You have been warned. So Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are out, and oh boy are they ever video games. I know this has probably been beaten to death, but what's piqued my interest about these particular Pokemon games is just how scattershot the quality really is. Now obviously these games are a technical disaster, and it's very clear to me that Game Freak is having a very hard time making games for the Switch, as we've seen with the very noticeable drop in quality from Pokemon titles since they've been on this console. There is already 1,001 videos talking about this, and that's not really news. That being said, there are some diamonds in the rough with this game, and I find it very interesting to point out some of the silly design choices and places where there is more care than you might expect to be put into a place, while the game around them basically struggles to function. And we don't have to look farther than the options screen for that, and it's an obvious point of contention for some players. For the first time in the series, both the option to turn off battle animations, as well as change the battle style from switch to set, is no longer available. But we also have surprisingly robust sound settings, with the ability to adjust the volume of in-game music, sound effects, and Pokemon cries individually. Like it's some kind of PC game, it's kind of insane. You also get the option to skip out learning on a move, since Pokemon now pool their level up moves and can swap them on whenever, and even the ability to skip cutscenes. I'm not exactly sure what skipping cutscenes entails in a game like this, but it's kind of unheard of when it comes to Pokemon games. Another pretty notable omission is that when you sleep in a Pokemon battle, it doesn't change at all, like not even the eyes close. It just kind of stands there and continues to blink and everything while sleeping. The part that makes this frustrating is that each and every Pokemon does have a sleeping animation, and is used when you're keeping your Pokemon out of the ball in the overworld for an extended period of time without moving. They'll kind of just take some Z's. And I know that these animations are probably not battle ready, but the fact of the matter is that they have a texture for each and every Pokemon with their eyes closed. So just close their eyes in battle. This time around, the Pokemon do look pretty good in a vacuum, with the main upgrade from Generation 8 being textures. The Steel-type Pokemon have a bit of a shine to them. Fur is now visible on most Pokemon with it, and it goes a little further than I thought it would at really selling how a Pokemon would feel to lick, I mean touch. But the good with the bad. The game runs so horribly that it has to rely on low poly models most of the time, which they've given to, from what I can see, every single Pokemon. There's also a lot of contradictions with the camera. There's a lot of cases where the camera will zoom into a Pokemon that you've encountered for it to cry as its low poly model, and then the camera will then zoom out to the battle as a whole, and now the Pokemon is using its proper high fidelity model, but not when it was zoomed in and focused on the screen. Just odd decisions like that are all over this game. That being said, I do like the idea of every Pokemon having a low poly model, because that sounds like hilarious potential once data miners and modders get into the game. Pokemon aren't the only thing that got a graphical upgrade. Trainers also see a very high fidelity increase, with many hairstyles showing individual strands of hair, as well as some hair physics that wasn't very well supported in previous titles. While customization did take a hit with the uniform being forced onto the player, this uniform is a little bit more adaptive than I thought it would be, with dust and debris accumulating on my clothes as well as on my Pokemon. Honestly, there are parts of this game that look really good in screenshots, because in screenshots, you can't tell the game is chugging horribly or just straight up glitching out. There seems to be a lot of messy code with this one, as many random glitches happen often enough that they're basically all over social media. And when I say random, I mean really random. I went to a picnic with my friends, and the basket on the side of the table just decided to be large. How do bugs like this happen? Like, what line of code is firing off in the wrong way to make this basket larger on 2 of the 3 axes? Or make people's eyes pop out like a booba meme? Or many of the other things that I'm sure you've already seen on Twitter if you've been paying any attention to this glorious disaster of a game. Honestly, that's the interesting thing, is that the polish is just kind of all over the place. There are plenty of places in the world that look very decent. And then there's just like an N64 era texture on this other thing over here. Like, these two screenshots are from the same game. It's hard to believe, but it's true. Another sweet spot for the game is the Pokédex. This time around, each and every Pokemon gets a neat little picture to represent them. What this tells me is that the developer spent a whole lot of time getting Pokemon into just the right pose to take glamour shots of them for the Pokédex. Meanwhile, the world is literally shaking while I'm making sandwiches. This whole game is just a weird scattershot of effort and polish, while other areas look straight up like beta footage. Something on a more positive note I would like to mention is that competitive play. And honestly, it's never been easier to get into competitive Pokemon than it is with this game. And I'd like to commend them for that. Pokemon is in a very unique situation, being viable as a PvP turn-based strategy game. Very few games can emulate that aside from like chess. One of the main issues I had with previous titles is that it's very much a chore to get into competitive play, essentially gating off potentially infinite replayability behind what amounted to busy work, or if you go back far enough, virtually insurmountable odds. Now, there's berries everywhere along the floor in the Gen 9 games, so it's quite simple to erase a Pokemon's effort values, paired with the new in-game store that sells almost every item that you'd ever need to turn your lovable Whittle starter into a potentially competitive ready Mon, which is a huge step forward for the franchise. Additionally, common competitive items are available in another store, allowing you to obtain multiple copies if you need them, or just offers a much smoother path into endgame content since you don't need to scour the entire game, picking up every single item to start your competitive team. Oh, and good luck if you need more than one of the same item. Back in my day, if you wanted another life orb, you just had to play the whole entire game again, idiot. Additionally, the availability of hyper training with bottle caps makes struggling with individual values a thing of the past. You can get what is essentially a perfect Pokemon for about 100,000 Pokédollars, which is roughly about 6 trainer battles in the endgame. Alternatively, if you're not into PvP, the endgame Terra raid battles do actually offer some challenge, with higher level raids scaling all the way up to level 100, and actually being quite demanding of your Pokemon. These reward the player with plenty of EXP and money items. Additionally, you may get some rare sandwich ingredients, which if used correctly, raise the chance of encountering shiny Pokemon dramatically. Pokemon in Scarlet also have a surprisingly large amount of muscular women in them. I'm not complaining. This is like the highest praise I can give. One of my favorite ones is the one that asks you if you want to piggyback, because I totally do want to piggyback. But with that said, that's all I really have to say about these games. Come check me out on Twitch this weekend if you want to watch me complete the Pokédex, and a special thanks to my Patreon supporters who allow me to make videos like this without having to run mid-roll ads on them or look for sponsorship deals. I think my videos are a great deal better because of them, and they have my unbridled appreciation. Thanks so much for watching until the end. Like the video if you liked it, sub to see more like it, and I'll see you in the next video.